Ladies and gentlemen, within each of us lies a world unseen, a realm beyond appearances, beyond the roles we play and the masks we wear. We spend much of our lives chasing shadows, seeking approval, success, and belonging. Yet deep inside, a quiet voice whispers, "This is not all that you are." The journey of life is not merely to adapt to the world, but to uncover the truth of one's own being. Beneath the surface of our thoughts and habits exists a deeper self, one that carries wisdom, creativity, and power. It is hidden behind the persona we show to others, and it often waits in silence until we are ready to listen. But to meet this true self, one must first confront the darkness within, the fears, the doubts, the unspoken desires. These shadows are not enemies, they are teachers. By facing them with courage, we discover that they are fragments of our own soul, asking to be understood and integrated. The path to authenticity is not about perfection, but wholeness. It is the uniting of opposites within us, the light and the shadow, the rational and the intuitive, the known and the unknown. Only when these parts come together can we stand in the full power of who we truly are. To discover your true self is to awaken. It is to realize that life's meaning is not given from the outside, but arises from the depths of your own being. The greatest adventure is not to conquer the world, but to return home, to the essence of yourself. So I ask you, dare to look within, dare to listen to the whispers of your soul, for in that inner journey lies the treasure no one else can give you, the discovery of your true self. From the moment we are born, we enter a world that expects us to behave in certain ways. We are given names, roles, and identities long before we truly understand who we are. As we grow, we learn how to act in order to be accepted, how to speak in order to be admired, and how to hide certain parts of ourselves in order to avoid rejection. Slowly, almost without noticing, we create a mask persona that allows us to function in the social world. This mask is not false in the sense of being a lie, it is a necessary adaptation. It helps us survive in society, it allows us to form connections, and it protects us from being exposed too soon. Yet, the danger comes when we begin to confuse the mask with the face beneath it. When the mask becomes our identity, we lose touch with the deeper reality of who we are. The self that exists behind the mask is far richer, more complex, and more mysterious than the version we show to others. Inside us lives a soul that carries the weight of unspoken dreams, forgotten desires, ancient fears, and unexpressed potentials. But because these aspects of ourselves do not always fit with the image society expects, we hide them away. We pretend to be what we think others will accept, and in doing so, we exile parts of our own being. The result is that many people go through life acting out a script written by family, culture, or circumstance, while the authentic self waits in silence beneath the surface. To live only through the mask is to live half a life. Outwardly, one may seem successful, charming, and even admired, yet inwardly there is often a sense of emptiness, a vague dissatisfaction, or a subtle feeling of not being truly alive. This is the price of forgetting the self. The true self does not vanish, it lingers in our dreams, in sudden moments of intuition, in the quiet longings that rise when we are alone. It waits for us in the symbols of our imagination, in the fantasies we dismiss as silly, and in the emotions we try to suppress. And sometimes, when we least expect it, it bursts through the mask in the form of anxiety, depression, or restlessness, as if to remind us, "I am still here. You have not yet discovered me." The mask is useful, but it is not enough. We cannot live forever as what others want us to be. There comes a moment in every life when the call of the deeper self becomes too strong to ignore. For some, it comes through crisis, the loss of a job, a broken relationship, an illness, or a failure that shatters the persona. For others, it comes through a quieter awakening, an encounter with beauty, an intense dream, or a sudden awareness that life is passing by, while something essential remains unexplored. In both cases, the call is the same, to turn inward and to begin the journey of discovering who we truly are beyond the mask. This is not an easy journey, for the mask is comfortable, it is familiar, and society rewards it. To step away from it, even for a moment, can feel like betrayal, as if we are letting others down or exposing ourselves to judgment. Yet the courage to look beyond the mask is the beginning of authenticity. It requires honesty, the willingness to ask difficult questions. Who am I when no one is watching? What do I truly desire? Which parts of myself have I silenced because they did not fit the image I wanted to present? In facing these questions, we begin to peel away the layers of the mask. We discover that behind the persona lives not just one identity, but many voices. There is the child within us who still longs to play and to dream. There is the wounded part of us that carries old pains. There is the creative force that seeks expression in art, in love, in work, in vision. There is the wise and intuitive center that knows more than our rational mind can grasp. All of these parts belong to the true self, and all of them demand recognition. The more we dare to acknowledge them, the more whole we become. Life begins to feel less like a performance and more like a genuine unfolding. Our relationships deepen because we are no longer relating through a mask, but through presence and sincerity. Our choices gain weight because they come not from what others expect, but from what resonates with the core of our being. Even our suffering becomes meaningful, for it no longer feels like a punishment, but like a teacher guiding us toward greater awareness. To discover the self behind the mask is to reclaim our own life. It is to say, I am not only what society wants me to be, I am not only the role I play at work, the image I present to friends, or the reputation others assign to me. I am larger than these roles. I am a mystery unfolding, a soul seeking wholeness, a being who carries both light and shadow, weakness and strength, love and fear. To know myself is to accept this complexity, to embrace it rather than run from it. And when this acceptance comes, a new freedom arises. No longer bound entirely by the opinions of others, we can act with greater authenticity. No longer afraid of our hidden parts, we can draw energy from them. No longer deceived by the mask, we can use it consciously when needed, without forgetting the face beneath. This is the balance, to wear the mask when the world requires it, but to remain rooted in the self that transcends it. In the end, the journey of life is not about discarding the mask altogether, but about remembering that it is only a tool, not an identity. The true task is to live from the center of our being, where the mask is no longer a prison, but a garment we can put on and take off at will. In that freedom lies authenticity, in that authenticity lies meaning, and in that meaning lies the discovery of our true self. The world constantly tells us to look outward. From childhood, we are trained to measure ourselves against the standards of society, to chase achievements, to seek recognition, to collect possessions, and to build an image that others will admire. We are taught that happiness lies in success, that fulfillment is found in the applause of others, that our value depends on what we accomplish in the outer world. And yet, countless people who reach these external goals find themselves strangely dissatisfied. The career is built, the wealth is acquired, the reputation is secured, and still there lingers an emptiness, a quiet voice within whispering that something essential has been overlooked. That whisper is the call of the inner journey. The greatest task of a human life is not simply to adapt to the outer world, but to discover the inner world that lies hidden within. The outer journey is visible. It can be measured in status and possessions. The inner journey, however, is invisible, and it is measured only in depth, meaning, and authenticity. It asks us not what we have achieved, but who we are becoming. It asks us not what we have gained, but whether we have touched the essence of our own being. To ignore this inner path is to remain a stranger to ourselves, to walk through life wearing masks without ever meeting the face beneath. The inner journey is difficult because it requires us to turn away from the distractions that constantly pull us outward. Modern life thrives on noise, on endless activity, on comparison and competition. Silence is feared, stillness is avoided, and solitude is treated as emptiness rather than as richness. Yet it is in silence, in stillness, in solitude that the soul begins to speak. The inner world does not shout, it whispers. It does not compete for attention, it waits with patience. To hear it, one must be willing to pause, to listen, to go against the flow of a culture that insists all meaning lies outside of us. Those who embark on the inner journey often discover that the first encounter is not with beauty, but with shadow. When the outer distractions fade and the gaze turns inward, what arises are often the parts of ourselves we have avoided. Old wounds resurface, hidden fears reveal themselves, and unfulfilled desires come to light. This is why so many resist the inner path. It feels dangerous to face what we have buried. Yet it is precisely through this confrontation that growth becomes possible. By acknowledging the pain, we free ourselves from its unconscious control. By facing our shadow, we begin to see it not as an enemy but as a guide. The inner journey is not about rejecting the outer world, but about balancing it. Outwardly, we build a life. Inwardly, we seek meaning. Outwardly, we play roles. Inwardly, we discover the one who plays them. Outwardly, we achieve. Inwardly, we awaken. Without the inner journey, the outer life loses depth. It becomes mechanical, driven by habit, ruled by the opinions of others. But with the inner journey, even ordinary experiences gain significance, for they are connected to the larger story of our becoming. Dreams, symbols, and imagination are the language of the inner world. They reveal truths that cannot be captured in logic or explained by reason. A dream may show us the part of ourselves we have ignored. A sudden intuition may point to a direction we have resisted. A symbol may awaken a feeling of recognition, as if something ancient and eternal within us has been stirred. To walk the inner path is to learn this language, to pay attention not only to what is visible, but to what is hidden, to trust that the soul speaks in ways the mind cannot fully grasp. At the heart of the inner journey lies the quest for wholeness. We are not simply minds or bodies, not only rational beings or emotional beings, not just individuals or members of society. We are all of these and more. To walk inward is to weave together the fragments of ourselves, to reconcile the opposites within us, to embrace both the light and the shadow, the strength and the vulnerability. The inner journey is the path toward becoming whole, and only in wholeness do we find authenticity. This journey cannot be completed in a day or even in a lifetime. It is not a destination, but an ongoing unfolding. Each stage of life calls us to a deeper encounter with ourselves. In youth, we may hear it as the call to dream. In midlife, we may hear it as the dissatisfaction that success alone cannot fill. In later years, it may come as a longing for meaning beyond worldly achievement. At every stage, the invitation remains the same: turn inward, listen, discover. To ignore this call is to live only on the surface of life, to remain caught in the chase, for external approval, while the soul goes unheard. But to answer the call is to enter into the greatest adventure possible, the adventure of becoming oneself. It is a journey marked not by trophies or titles, but by a growing sense of peace, by an inner strength that no circumstance can shake, by a connection to something deeper and more enduring than the shifting winds of fortune. When a person begins to walk this path, the outer world itself changes. Relationships become more genuine, for they are no longer based solely on roles but on authenticity. Work becomes more meaningful, for it is not just a means of survival or recognition, but an expression of one's inner truth. Even suffering becomes transformed, for it is understood as part of the soul's growth, a shaping of the inner being. The inner journey illuminates the outer journey, giving it depth, direction, and purpose. To discover the inner world is to discover that life's greatest treasures are not given by society, not purchased with wealth, not secured by status. They are found in the quiet recognition of who we are beneath the masks, in the courage to face what we have hidden, in the integration of all that we are. The inner journey is not an escape from life, but the essence of life itself. To walk it is to live fully, to live deeply, to live in truth. Every human being carries within themselves a darkness that they would rather not see. It is made up of the traits we deny, the desires we repress, the fears we conceal, and the impulses we cannot admit to ourselves. We like to imagine that we are fully in control, that we are only the image we present to the world. Yet beneath this surface, there exists a hidden companion. This unseen part of our psyche is often called the shadow. It follows us wherever we go, shaping our choices and coloring our relationships, even when we pretend it does not exist. To live without awareness of the shadow is to be at its mercy, but to face it with honesty is to unlock one of the greatest sources of growth. The shadow is not evil in itself. It is not a monster to be destroyed, but a reservoir of energies and possibilities that have been exiled from our conscious life. When we were children, we learned quickly which behaviors brought love and which brought punishment. We adapted by presenting only those parts of ourselves that were acceptable to parents, teachers, and peers. The rest, the anger, the jealousy, the ambition, the vulnerability, even the brilliance that frightened others, was pushed into the unconscious. We built a mask to survive, but everything that did not fit the mask became shadow. Over the years, this hidden world grows stronger, influencing us in ways we barely notice. We may see it erupt in sudden bursts of rage, in envy we cannot control, in addictions that seem to appear out of nowhere. But what we fail to realize is that these eruptions are messages, invitations to turn inward and acknowledge what we have denied. The shadow makes itself known most clearly when we project it onto others. What we refuse to see in ourselves, we often notice and condemn in the people around us. We may find ourselves despising arrogance in others while ignoring our own hidden pride. We may criticize selfishness, yet secretly crave the same freedom to live without guilt. We may hate weakness in others because it reminds us of the vulnerability we have buried. In this way, our relationships become mirrors, reflecting back the parts of ourselves we have not yet claimed. The anger we feel toward others often reveals the shadow we fear within. If we have the courage to examine these reactions, we begin to see that what disturbs us most in the outer world often points to something unresolved in the inner world. The temptation is always to split the self into good and bad, to cling to the light while rejecting the darkness. But this division keeps us fragmented. Wholeness is not found in denying the shadow, but in integrating it. To integrate the shadow does not mean indulging in destructive impulses or giving free rein to every hidden desire. It means recognizing these forces, understanding their roots, and transforming them into conscious energy. Anger, once acknowledged, can become strength. Fear, once faced, can become wisdom. Even the qualities we fear most in ourselves often carry hidden gifts. The aggressiveness we deny may conceal the courage to stand firm. The selfishness we repress may contain the seed of healthy self-care. By rejecting these qualities outright, we lose their potential. By integrating them, we gain balance and power. The journey into the shadow is not comfortable. It requires honesty, humility, and courage. It means admitting that we are not as pure or simple as we would like to believe. It means sitting with emotions that unsettle us, acknowledging motives we wish were not ours, accepting that we are both noble and flawed. Yet this confrontation is liberating. The moment we stop running from the shadow, we are no longer controlled by it. What once appeared as an enemy reveals itself as part of our wholeness. The shadow does not vanish, but it loses its destructive power. Instead of ruling us from the unconscious, it joins us as an ally in the conscious life. The world is full of people who have refused this confrontation, who live entirely in denial of their own shadow. They present only the polished mask, insisting that they are virtuous, kind, selfless, or wise. But beneath the surface, the shadow grows restless. It erupts in unexpected ways, through cruelty hidden behind righteousness, through manipulation disguised as love, through hypocrisy that cannot be concealed forever. To ignore the shadow is to live in illusion. The more we deny it, the stronger it becomes, and the more it distorts our lives. Only by facing it directly can we free ourselves from its hidden grip. The shadow is also deeply personal. Each individual has their own version shaped by their experiences, their culture, and their history. But it is also universal. Across all humanity, there are recurring patterns of darkness, archetypal forces that appear in myths, stories, and dreams. The villain in a tale, the monster in a nightmare, the trickster who disrupts order. These are reflections of the shadow that every human carries. They remind us that no one is exempt from this inner struggle. We all carry light and darkness, and it is in the dance between them that true humanity is revealed. When we accept the shadow, a profound transformation occurs. Life becomes more authentic because we are no longer hiding from ourselves. Compassion deepens because we realize that others too carry hidden burdens. Creativity blossoms because the energies once locked in the unconscious are freed for expression. Even spirituality takes on new meaning, for we discover that light is brightest only when it includes the darkness. The person who has faced their shadow is not perfect, but they are real. They live with honesty, aware of both their limitations and their strengths, guided not by the fear of exposure, but by the courage of integration. To walk with the shadow is to walk toward wholeness. It is to understand that the goal of life is not to become flawless, but to become complete. The shadow does not disappear, but it becomes a part of the greater self, enriching it with depth and power. Those who take this path know the secret that many avoid. The treasure we seek is often hidden in the places we fear to look. To face the shadow is to uncover that treasure, to find within our own darkness the key to our true light. So many people spend their lives chasing an image of perfection, an ideal self that is polished, flawless, admired, and untouched by weakness. From the time we are young, we are told who we should be, what qualities are admirable, and what flaws must be erased or hidden. We are taught to aim for excellence, to present only our best face, to climb higher and higher toward a version of ourselves that exists only as an illusion. Yet no matter how far we run after this dream of perfection, it always escapes us. For life itself is not perfect, and neither are we. To demand perfection from the human soul is to demand something unnatural, something impossible. What the soul truly longs for is not perfection, but wholeness. Wholeness is something very different. It does not mean being without flaws, but rather embracing all of our parts, the noble and the base, the strong and the fragile, the generous and the selfish, the rational and the instinctive. Wholeness is not a state of purity, but of completeness. It is the recognition that every human being is a mixture of light and shadow, strength and weakness, wisdom and foolishness. To be whole is to stand in the truth of this complexity without denial, without pretending to be more than we are, but also without shrinking into less than we can be. Perfection divides us, wholeness unites us. When we chase perfection, we begin to split ourselves. We polish the traits that look admirable and bury the ones that embarrass us. We project a mask of goodness while secretly hiding anger, desire, or fear. We try to silence our doubts in order to look confident, or suppress our tears in order to appear strong. Slowly, we become strangers to ourselves. We live half a life, the acceptable half, while the rejected half festers in the dark. And the more we deny it, the more restless it becomes. It bursts through in ways we cannot control, in sudden fits of rage, in quiet despair, in a feeling that no matter how hard we try, something essential is missing. Wholeness requires another path. It asks us to stop dividing ourselves into good and bad, acceptable and unacceptable, worthy and unworthy. It invites us to look at ourselves with honesty and compassion, to admit that we are complex creatures, capable of both creation and destruction, of love and of hatred, of wisdom and of folly. This honesty is not meant to discourage us, but to free us. For when we accept ourselves fully, we are no longer enslaved by the fear of being exposed. We do not need to keep polishing the mask, because we know that the truth of who we are goes far deeper than appearances. In relationships, the difference between perfection and wholeness is striking. The person who chases perfection presents a flawless surface to others, but cannot allow intimacy, because intimacy would reveal the cracks beneath. They demand perfection from those they love, leading to disappointment and resentment when reality intrudes. But the person who seeks wholeness allows others to see their imperfections. They are not afraid to admit mistakes, to show vulnerability, to confess doubts. This openness invites genuine connection, for others feel safe to be real in return. Love thrives not in the absence of flaws, but in the acceptance of them. Even our pain belongs to wholeness. The experiences we wish we could erase, loss, failure, rejection, heartbreak, are not signs of imperfection, but threads woven into the tapestry of our becoming. To deny them is to deny our own story. To integrate them is to find meaning in suffering, to recognize that our wounds, when faced honestly, become sources of compassion and strength. The scar does not vanish, but it becomes part of the design, a reminder of resilience, a testament to survival. In this way, even the darkest moments serve the greater whole. The pursuit of perfection often leads to comparison, to measuring ourselves against impossible standards set by society, culture, or the false images of others. It breeds envy, shame, and self-contempt. Wholeness, on the other hand, is deeply individual. It asks not, how do I measure against others, but, am I living in truth with myself? It shifts the focus from performance to authenticity, from image to essence. The whole person does not need to compete endlessly, for they know their worth is not dependent on surpassing others, but on embodying their own truth. Perfection demands rigidity. Wholeness allows flexibility. The one who seeks perfection cannot make mistakes without feeling broken, cannot fail without feeling worthless. But the one who seeks wholeness knows that mistakes are teachers, that failure is part of growth, that to stumble is not to be ruined, but to be human. In this way, Wholeness brings resilience. It allows us to bend without breaking, to learn from life rather than fight against it. It gives us the strength to continue even when the outer image collapses, because the inner self remains intact. The journey toward wholeness is lifelong. It is not a destination to be reached once and for all, but a process of continual integration. Each stage of life reveals new aspects of ourselves that must be faced and welcomed. As children, we learn to integrate play and discipline. As adults, we must integrate ambition and responsibility, freedom and duty. As we grow older, we face the task of integrating success and failure, joy and grief, hope and mortality. At every turn, life presents us with opposites, and the task is always the same: not to choose one side and reject the other, but to unite them within ourselves in balance. In wholeness there is peace. Not the peace of a perfect life without problems, but the peace of living in harmony with reality. To be whole is to stand with both feet on the ground, rooted in truth, aware of the contradictions and tensions of existence, yet no longer at war with them. It is to recognize that the human soul is vast, and that within it there is room for everything: light and darkness, joy and sorrow, weakness and strength. The whole person does not need to be perfect, for they have discovered something greater. They have discovered the freedom of being entirely themselves. Human beings are restless creatures. We search for meaning everywhere, through achievement, through recognition, through the accumulation of wealth and possessions, through the admiration of others, through systems of belief handed down to us by tradition. We tell ourselves that if only we reach a certain milestone, if only we are loved by the right people, if only we rise high enough in the eyes of society, then life will at last make sense. Yet again and again, people arrive at those very places and discover an emptiness they did not expect. The applause fades, the trophies gather dust, the praise is forgotten, and beneath it all the question remains: why am I here? What is the purpose of this brief and fragile existence? The truth is that meaning cannot be given to us by the outer world. Meaning is not something granted by society, nor can it be fully contained in the rewards of success. Meaning must be discovered within, born out of the depths of the soul itself. The inner life has its own voice, one that often contradicts the noise of the world. Outwardly, society tells us to follow certain paths, to pursue goals that seem universally desirable: wealth, beauty, status, recognition. But inwardly, there is often a whisper that says these things are not enough, or that they do not truly belong to us. Each person carries within them a unique pattern, a calling that cannot be measured by outer standards. Some discover it through creativity, others through service, some through knowledge, and others through the simple act of living with integrity. To find meaning is to listen carefully to this inner voice, to honor the direction it points us toward, even if it defies convention or brings misunderstanding. The meaning of life is not a formula given from the outside. It is a personal revelation that emerges as we dare to live authentically. When we neglect this inner source of meaning, we become vulnerable to despair. Without an inner foundation, life feels hollow no matter how bright it appears on the surface. We may chase distraction after distraction, hoping that the next achievement will finally satisfy. Yet each victory leaves us emptier than before. Depression, restlessness, and anxiety often arise not because life has no meaning, but because we have not connected with the meaning that lives within us. The soul grows sick when it is starved of purpose. Outer successes can keep us occupied, but they cannot fill the deeper hunger for significance. Only when we look within and align our lives with the truth of our own being does this hunger begin to be fed. Dreams, intuitions, and sudden moments of clarity are often the guides that point us toward inner meaning. A dream may reveal a longing we have ignored. A moment of stillness may awaken us to what we truly value. A sudden sense of resonance with a symbol, a piece of art, or an experience in nature can remind us that life has depths far beyond what the rational mind can explain. These are not random illusions, but messages from the unconscious, urging us to pay attention, to recognize that the true compass of meaning lies not in the external world, but in the inner world. The mind alone cannot grasp meaning, for meaning is not a logical conclusion. It is an experience, a recognition, a harmony between the self and existence. Those who discover meaning within often find that their outer life changes as well. Work ceases to be a mere duty and becomes an expression of the inner self. Relationships shift from superficial roles to genuine connections. Even suffering transforms, for pain that once seemed pointless begins to reveal a hidden significance. A loss may awaken compassion. A failure may reveal a deeper strength. A crisis may open the door to self-knowledge that comfort never could. When meaning arises from within, even the darkest experiences can become part of a larger story, one that gives coherence to the chaos of life. This does not mean that outer achievements are worthless, nor that society's recognition has no value. It simply means that these things cannot be the foundation of a meaningful life. They may be fruits, but they cannot be the root. If our entire identity is built on them, we will collapse when they are taken away. But if meaning is rooted within, we remain steady even when circumstances change. Wealth may be lost, reputation may fade, loved ones may leave, yet the inner flame continues to burn. For true meaning does not depend on what happens outside of us. It depends on whether we are living in alignment with the truth of our own being. The search for meaning within is not selfish. On the contrary, it is what enables us to give our best to the world. The person who is rooted in inner meaning does not need to exploit others to feel valuable. They do not need to dominate or impress to feel alive. They act out of authenticity rather than insecurity, out of wholeness rather than emptiness. Their presence becomes a gift, for it carries the weight of truth. The greatest service we can offer the world is to become who we truly are, to live from the depth of our own being. For in doing so, we bring authenticity into a world drowning in imitation. Ultimately, meaning from within is not something we invent, but something we uncover. It is already there, hidden beneath layers of fear, expectation, and conditioning. It reveals itself when we are willing to be silent, when we dare to question, when we risk living according to our own truth rather than the world's approval. This is why many discover meaning not in moments of triumph, but in moments of loss, when the outer supports fall away and the inner voice can finally be heard. In the silence of crisis, the soul speaks more clearly, reminding us that life's deepest purpose is not to achieve perfection in the eyes of others, but to realize the truth of ourselves. Meaning does not arrive as a final answer, but as a living process. It grows and changes as we grow and change. At times, it may appear small, hidden in daily acts of kindness or in the pursuit of a passion that others may never understand. At other times, it may blaze with clarity, filling us with a sense of destiny and direction. But whether quiet or dramatic, it is always personal, always rooted in the inner life. To find it is to awaken to the reality that our existence is not random, that each of us carries within a seed of purpose that only we can bring into the world. To live from this seed is to live meaningfully, not because others approve, but because our own soul has spoken, and we have listened. Every human being is born with an inner call, a quiet invitation to turn inward and discover the deeper truth of who they are. Yet most ignore it, not because they cannot hear it, but because answering it requires courage. It is easier to live according to the expectations of others, easier to wear the mask of conformity, easier to walk the well-trodden path that promises safety and approval. But the soul does not thrive on safety alone. It demands authenticity, and authenticity demands bravery. To discover one's true self is not a comfortable task, it is a dangerous adventure. It requires the courage to confront what we fear within ourselves, to face the uncertainty of the unknown, and to risk the disapproval of the world. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move through it. The call to courage is not asking us to become fearless, but to become honest enough to admit our fears and still act in spite of them. To turn inward is to face a wilderness without maps. The familiar landmarks of outer life, success, reputation, possessions, offer no guidance there. We are left alone with the silence of the inner world, confronted by memories we had buried, emotions we had denied, and truths we had long avoided. The first impulse is always to turn back, to cling to the comfort of distraction. But if we stay, if we endure the discomfort, something remarkable begins to happen. The shadows lose their terror, the chaos reveals its patterns, and within the silence we hear a voice that belongs to us, a voice that has always been waiting. Courage is needed not only to face the inner darkness, but also to live outwardly according to what we discover there. Once we touch the truth of ourselves, we realize how often it conflicts with the demands of society. Perhaps the work we are called to is not the work that earns the most admiration. Perhaps the relationships that truly nurture us do not fit the image others expect. Perhaps the values that ignite our soul stand in direct opposition to the values praised by the culture around us. To live authentically is to risk rejection, to accept the loneliness of being misunderstood. Many retreat at this stage, choosing to bury their truth in order to remain comfortable. But those who persist, those who choose authenticity over approval, discover a freedom that cannot be taken away. This freedom is the reward of courage. The person who has dared to face themselves, who has dared to follow their inner truth, no longer lives as a prisoner of opinion. They are not easily manipulated by praise or destroyed by criticism. They are not enslaved by the fear of failure, for they know that the only true failure is the betrayal of the self. With courage, they live with an inner solidity, a grounding that makes them resilient in the face of life's storms. Even when they stumble on their own path, and this gives their life a meaning that no borrowed script could ever provide. The call to courage also demands that we face not only our weaknesses, but also our potential. Many fear their greatness as much as they fear their flaws. To embrace one's creativity, one's strength, one's passion, is to accept responsibility for it. It is easier to hide behind smallness, to say, "I am not capable, I am not ready, I am not enough." But this is another form of cowardice, a refusal to carry the weight of the gifts we have been given. Courage is required not only to face our shadows, but also to step into our light, to own the fullness of our being without apology. Life will test this courage again and again. There will be moments when everything we have built collapses, when the path forward disappears into darkness, when the future holds no certainty. In such times, the temptation is to despair, to believe that life has no meaning. Yet these are often the very moments when courage reveals its greatest power. For in the absence of certainty, we are forced to draw strength from within. In the face of loss, we discover resilience. In the presence of death, we awaken to the urgency of life. Courage does not shield us from suffering, but it transforms suffering into a teacher, into a passage through which the soul deepens and grows. To live with courage is to accept that we will not always be understood, that we will not always succeed, that we will not always feel safe. But it is also to accept that without courage, we cannot truly live. The timid life may appear secure, but it is hollow. It is a life of quiet despair, of unfulfilled potential, of dreams abandoned before they are even attempted. The courageous life may be marked by risk, by failure, by rejection, but it is alive, it is real, and it leads us closer to the truth of ourselves. In the end, courage is not a heroic act reserved for the few. It is a daily choice made by anyone who dares to be authentic. It is the decision to speak the truth when silence would be easier, to follow the heart when conformity is safer, to look inward when distraction is more comfortable. It is the willingness to face both the light and the shadow, both the beauty and the terror of existence, without turning away. The call to courage is the call to become whole, to stand firmly in one's own being, to live without betrayal of the soul. Those who answer this call discover that courage is not only for themselves, but for others as well. Their authenticity becomes a beacon, reminding others that they too can be brave. Their presence gives permission for others to live more fully, to face their own fears, to step into their own truth. Courage is contagious, and in living courageously, we help awaken the same possibility in those around us. To be human is to be fragile, uncertain, and afraid, but it is also to be capable of great courage. The invitation is always there, waiting in every moment of decision. Will you shrink into safety, or will you step forward into authenticity? Will you betray yourself for the comfort of approval, or will you dare to live in alignment with your soul? The choice belongs to each of us, and it is in that choice, made again and again, that we discover not only who we are, but who we are meant to become.